A federal court ruling just dropped in February 2026 that quietly changed how 10 major gun laws work across America. And if you haven't heard about this yet, you're not alone, because mainstream media buried this story so deep that even most gun owners have no idea their rights just shifted. Quick question before we continue. Are you subscribed? Because what I'm about to reveal affects every single gun owner in this country, and you need to know this information before you make your next purchase, carry decision, or range trip. Hit that button now so you never miss updates like this. So here's what just happened. On February 4th, 2026, the United States Court of Appeals for the Sixth Circuit issued a ruling in a case that most people ignored. The case itself seemed boring on the surface. It was about one guy in Ohio who got charged with a technical violation. But here's the crazy part. The reasoning the judges used in this case created a ripple effect that touched 10 different areas of gun law. And legal experts are calling this one of the most significant Second Amendment developments since the Bruin decision back in 2022. Let me break this down for you in plain English. The court basically said that when judges look at gun laws, they have to use a much stricter historical test than before. They can't just say a law is reasonable or serves public safety. Now they have to prove that a similar law existed in American history, specifically before 1868 when the 14th Amendment was ratified. This might sound like boring legal stuff, but trust me, this changes everything. First thing this impacts is concealed carry permits. Here's what most people get wrong. They think this ruling only affects one state. Wrong. Because of how appellate courts work, this decision sets precedent for 6 states: Michigan, Ohio, Kentucky, Tennessee. But wait, there's something even more important. Other federal courts are already citing this case in their own decisions. That means the effect is spreading nationwide faster than anyone predicted. Let me give you a real-world example of what this means. Imagine you're applying for a concealed carry permit in a state that requires you to show good cause or proper reason for wanting to carry. Under the old rules, some states could deny you just because they didn't think your reason was good enough. Maybe you said you wanted it for general self-defense, and they said that wasn't specific enough. Under this new ruling, those subjective standards are now on very shaky legal ground. The court said, you can't make someone prove they deserve a constitutional right. You already have the right just by being a law-abiding citizen. Second, this affects waiting periods. Now, quick legal note, this is educational information, not legal advice. Always consult an attorney for your specific situation. But here's what the ruling said about waiting periods. Several states have laws that make you wait anywhere from 3 days to 10 days before you can take your gun home after purchase. The reasoning was always that this cooling off period prevents impulsive violence. But this court said you need historical evidence that waiting periods existed in early America. And guess what? There's almost no evidence of mandatory waiting periods before 1868. So now states that have these laws are scrambling because they can't find the historical justification the court demands. Third impact is on magazine capacity limits. This is the part that shocked me when I read the full decision. The judges made a point of saying that arms in common use cannot be banned. And they specifically mentioned that standard capacity magazines, the ones that hold more than 10 rounds, are absolutely in common use. There are literally hundreds of millions of these magazines in America. The court said if something is that common, you can't just ban it because you think it's scary or unnecessary. You have to prove that founding-era Americans would have banned similar arms. And since repeating firearms existed back then, even if they weren't as advanced, the historical argument falls apart. If you're finding this helpful, imagine what you'll learn in my next video where I break down the 5 specific words you should say when a police officer asks if you're carrying a weapon. Subscribe so you don't miss it, because that video could literally save you from an illegal search. Fourth, this ruling impacts assault weapon bans. Now, I know this is controversial, so let me just give you the facts. Several states have laws that ban certain rifles based on features like pistol grips, adjustable stocks, or barrel shrouds. This court said those feature-based bans don't hold up under the historical test. Why? Because you're banning guns based on how they look, not how they function. And there's zero historical precedent for that. In the 1700s and 1800s, nobody banned rifles because they had a certain type of grip. They either banned all rifles or they didn't. This middle ground of banning some features but not others is a modern invention that does not match historical practice. Fifth, red flag laws are now under much more scrutiny. These are the laws that let police take your guns if someone reports that you are a danger to yourself or others. Before this ruling, many states had red flag laws that didn't require much evidence. Someone could make an accusation and your guns could be seized before you even got a hearing. This court said that violates due process. They pointed to historical laws that required a formal hearing and real evidence before you could lose your rights. So now red flag laws have to be rewritten to include stronger protections for gun owners, like the right to a lawyer, the right to see the evidence against you, and the right to a full hearing before any seizure happens. Here's the part nobody's talking about. Sixth impact is on gun-free school zones. Federal law says you can't have a gun within 1,000 feet of a school. That's about 3 football fields. In most cities, that means you can't carry in huge sections of town. This ruling didn't directly overturn that law, but it created serious problems for it. The court said gun-free zones are only constitutional if there's a historical tradition of similar restrictions. And guess what? Schools in early America didn't have gun-free zones. In fact, it was common for students to bring rifles to school for hunting on the way home. So now prosecutors are hesitant to charge people under this law because they know the defense will cite this new ruling. Seventh, permitless carry laws just got stronger legal backing. You know how some states let you carry a concealed gun without any permit at all? Constitutional carry, they call it. Some people thought those laws might get challenged and overturned, but this ruling basically said the opposite. The court said that requiring a permit to exercise a constitutional right needs a really strong historical justification. And since permits didn't exist in early America, the default should be permitless carry, not the other way around. That means the 29 states that already have constitutional carry are on rock-solid legal ground, and it puts pressure on the other states to follow suit. Hey, here's a crazy stat. Only 15% of people watching right now are subscribed. That means 85% of you are at risk of missing critical legal updates that could affect your rights or even your freedom. Don't be in that 85%. Hit subscribe and turn on notifications so you catch every upload. Eighth impact is on ammunition regulations. Some states tried to regulate ammo even more strictly than guns themselves. They required background checks for ammo purchases, or they limited how much you could buy at once. This ruling threw a wrench in all of that. The court said ammunition is an essential component of arms, so it gets the same constitutional protection as the guns themselves. You can't have a Second Amendment right to own a gun if the government can just restrict your access to ammunition. That would be like saying you have free speech rights, but we're going to ban paper and ink. So now ammo regulations are being challenged in multiple states, and they're losing in court. Ninth, this affects gun storage laws. You've probably heard of laws that require you to lock up your guns at home, especially if you have kids. On the surface, that sounds reasonable, right? But this court said mandatory storage laws can violate your right to self-defense. Here's a hypothetical example to explain this. Imagine someone breaks into your home at 2 a.m. If your gun is locked in a safe and the ammo is locked somewhere else, you can't defend yourself quickly. The court said the founders never required people to keep their guns locked up and unusable. In fact, guns were often kept loaded and ready above the fireplace. So mandatory storage laws are now being rewritten to allow exceptions for self-defense situations. And here's the 10th impact, the one that could affect you the most. This ruling changes how pistol brace regulations work. You know the ATF tried to reclassify pistol braces as stocks, which would turn millions of pistols into illegal short-barreled rifles overnight. This court ruling gives gun owners a major argument against that. The judges said administrative agencies like the ATF, CA, can't just reinterpret the law to ban things that were previously legal. If Congress wants to ban pistol braces, Congress has to pass a law. The ATF can't do it through regulatory changes. So now, all those pistol brace rules are tied up in court, and gun owners are winning case after case. Now, this is where it gets interesting. You might be wondering why you didn't hear about this on the news. Here's the truth. Most media outlets don't understand gun law, and they definitely don't read appellate court decisions. They only cover the Supreme Court, and even then, they get stuff wrong. So rulings like this one fly completely under the radar. But they're just as important, maybe even more important, because they set the stage for future Supreme Court cases. Let me tell you what this means for you personally. If you live in a state with strict gun laws, you now have legal ammunition to challenge those laws. I'm not saying you should go break the law, don't do that, but if you get charged with violating one of these 10 types of laws, your defense attorney now has powerful case law to cite. And if you're thinking about moving to a different state because of gun laws, you might want to wait a little bit. Because this ruling is going to force a lot of states to change their laws over the next year or two. Here's what most people get wrong about court rulings. They think a decision happens and everything changes overnight. That's not how it works. First, the ruling comes out, then lawyers start citing it in other cases, then lower courts start following it, then state legislatures start rewriting laws to comply with it. This whole process takes months or even years. But the dominoes are falling right now, and most gun owners have no idea. This information could literally save you from legal trouble in the next few months. Subscribe now so you're always ahead of these changes, because my next video breaks down exactly which states are most likely to change their laws next and what you need to do to prepare. Don't wait until it's too late. So, what should you do with this information? 3 things, First, if you live in a state with strict gun laws, start paying attention to legal challenges in your state. Gun rights groups are filing lawsuits right now based on this ruling. Second, if you ever get charged with a gun violation, make sure your attorney knows about this case. I'm not kidding. Some lawyers don't keep up with appellate decisions, and you need to make sure yours does. Third, stay informed. Laws are changing faster right now than at any point in the last 30 years. You can't afford to be in the dark. Let me wrap this up with the big picture. This February ruling isn't just about 10 gun laws. It's about the direction of Second Amendment law for the next decade. The courts are moving toward a much more restrictive test for gun regulations. States can't just pass laws because they feel good or sound reasonable. They have to prove historical justification, and for most modern gun control laws, that justification doesn't exist. So we're entering a new era where a lot of restrictions are going to fall, and gun owners are going to get their rights back. But here's the thing. This only works if you know about it. If you don't know your rights, you can't exercise them. If you don't know when laws change, you can't adapt. That's why this channel exists. To give you the information you need to stay legal, stay safe, and stay informed. Before I go, here's my final appeal to you. If this video helped you understand something important, hit that subscribe button right now. Share this video with every gun owner you know, because I guarantee they haven't heard about this ruling. And drop a comment below telling me which of these 10 impacts affects you the most. I read every single comment, and your feedback helps me make better videos. One last thing. Remember, this is educational content, not legal advice. Every situation is different, and laws vary by state. If you have specific questions about your gun rights, talk to a qualified attorney in your area. But now you know what questions to ask, and that's half the battle. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video where we dive even deeper into how these changes affect concealed carry across all 50 states. Don't miss it. Subscribe now.